Welcome back to the pop culture discussion. I'm your host, Robert, and it's that time of the week again with The Last of Us coming out with episode 7. Bella Ramsey absolutely shines in this Ellie-centric episode that explains the emotional origins and events that created the character that we see today. In case you haven't been watching these every week, again, this is a little explainer. I do a spoiler-free review followed by a spoiler-filled discussion. Feel free to watch either parts of the video, depending on if you have or haven't seen the episode yet. I remember last week, I said last week's episode was Joel's episode, and I was like, next week, it's gonna be Ellie's episode, 100%. And that's exactly what this episode was. Bella Ramsey really gets to flex her acting chops in this episode. She shows that she's got what it takes to carry an entire episode with a wide variety of acting skills. And if Ellie is your favorite character, this very well could be your favorite episode so far. We've got another fantastic side character introduced in this episode who has some incredible character chemistry with Ellie. It's believable, it's emotional, and it's just adorable. We have more incredibly realized locations ripped straight from the game. This episode probably has my favorite reenacted location that is either on par with Jackson from last week's episode, or it could very well be the best recreation we've seen so far. There's some fantastic shots and cinematography in this episode as well. It was more immersive and creative. It just made a few scenes hit a lot harder because the cinematography was so well done. This could quite possibly be the first episode with a kind of sudden ending. It just kind of comes out of nowhere. I thought there was still quite a lot to go with the episode, and then the credits rolled, and I was like, oh, okay then. So they're clearly saving some bigger parts for the next episode. And again, another warning, in case you haven't picked up on this already, don't get attached to the characters in the show. Yeah, that's all I'm gonna say on that. Overall, this was a pretty good episode. I do understand why people might find it's kind of a filler episode, as where the entire episode is basically a flashback, but it explains and flushes out a main character here. Between Joel and Ellie, we've definitely spent more time with Joel so far, so to give Ellie her own episode and flush her character out more, it's definitely needed in the show. The structure and layout of this episode might be underwhelming to gamers, as where this segment of the game kind of took place between the past and the present, flashing back and forth between those two times, explaining exactly what Ellie is doing. Minus maybe 5 minutes of this episode, this entire episode takes place in the past. So that might underwhelm a few gamers. Myself, personally, I was a little underwhelmed by that. I feel they are saving that part of the storytelling for the next episode. So next one's gonna be a big one, and Ellie's definitely gonna shine in that one too. By saying this episode's underwhelming, I'm not saying it's bad. Not a single episode of this show has been bad yet. To be honest, I was just expecting a little more of what's happening in the current timeline. I am extremely excited for next week. I know it's coming because I played the game, and it's gonna be hectic. Okay, discussion time. Again, final warning, I am spoiling literally the entire episode. If you haven't seen the show or the episode yet and you're planning to, don't watch this part. As I mentioned in my review, the style of the storytelling was completely different to the game. This segment of the game is actually DLC to the first game. So if you've only played the standard first game and that's it, you haven't actually witnessed this part of the story. And it obviously covers the flashback on how Ellie got bit and her relationship with Riley, but it also covers Ellie exploring in the current timeline, trying to find medicine to heal Joel, and it's kind of the first time that she steps up and takes leadership within their team. And that part of the DLC that is set in the current timeline is a huge growing moment for Ellie stepping up and becoming the badass that she ends up being. And I'm not gonna lie, because we didn't get that growth in this episode, that's probably why I was a little underwhelmed, but they're very clearly saving it for the next episode, and I'm sure that will absolutely make up for it. When binging this entire show, you're probably not really gonna notice, but watching these episodes every week, I'm like, oh damn, they probably should have put that in this episode, but you know, they didn't. They really wanted to spend the time in the past explaining the events that crafted Ellie into the girl that we know her to be today. Riley is great in this. I don't know the actress, I haven't seen her in anything else, but she was fantastic. Her chemistry with Ellie was extremely believable, it was adorable, it was heartfelt, it was emotional. I mean, we really only get this one episode with her, but it makes sense why Ellie is like obsessed with her. Speaking of Ellie, Bella Ramsey is fantastic in this. She goes through a roller coaster ride of emotions in this episode. I said in my review as well, the location in this is on par with Jackson from last week's episode, and that's the mall. The mall looks incredible. Honestly, this reenactment is fantastic. It is location for location from the game. I'm gonna just list through a couple real quick, ones that jumped out to me that I was like, wow, these are fantastic. These are identical. I'm just gonna power through them real quick. The escalators, I know it's literally just an escalator, but same thing happens in the game and Ellie's reaction to it, but we got to spend a tiny bit more time here and just Ellie freaking out and just enjoying them. That was a lot of fun to watch. The carousel, I'm glad that Riley got to ride on the carousel with Ellie in the show as we're in the game. It's just Ellie, and then as soon as Riley tries to join, it shuts down. So that was kind of nice. And they got to share that little moment of Riley just having a great time and Ellie just taking Riley in. It was just, yeah, it was adorable. The photo booth ripped straight from the game as well. This was honestly such an adorable reenactment, and just the chemistry between the two. You could tell they were just having fun, but we were getting some sparks flying. It was really cute. The arcade, ripped straight from the game, but severely improved in the show. In the game, they go into the arcade, nothing works, and Ellie has to kind of imagine a game working. I'm not gonna lie, I am not really a big fan of that segment in the game. I find it like super cheesy, so I was just like, oh, this is kind of weird. It just didn't feel like it belonged. I mean, it got to show a creative side of the imagination of Riley and Ellie, but I don't know. I just thought that segment in the game was kind of weird and just didn't really fit. And then in the show, the arcade actually does work and they get to have some fun there. I thought that was way better, much more believable, and just more fun to watch. The Puns book returns as well. That's quite a segment in the DLC too. You could literally just read puns to Riley for ages before Ellie decides to put it down. So yeah, that was a fun little call out too. And the Halloween store and the mask also ripped straight from the game. They're the identical masks and the Halloween store is exactly the same. And then following up with that dance and the same song as well that they have together, that was straight from the game too. And it works just as well here. I mentioned the cinematography in my review, that really creepy view of the camera kind of going around and showing the infected person. There was some other really good cinematography here as well. There was that shot where the arcade first turns on. That was fantastic. Probably one of the best shots in the whole show so far. And the cinematography when they were climbing on the roof together as well, before they got into the arcade, that stuff was awesome. The infected attack was really intense here. Even though it was only one infected in the game, it's about 20 and they kind of chase them through the entire mall and then they kind of get trapped at the end. They almost make it out and then Ellie stacks it and Riley jumps in to save her and then that causes them to both get bit. As we're in the show, it's just one infected comes in and attacks them and they both get wrecked. I mean, sure, this was a much more budget-friendly way to do this scene. I'm not gonna lie, a chase through the mall would have been pretty epic, but yeah, it was still a really good scene. It was super intense. And Ellie and Riley's final moments together was ripped straight from the game as well. It's really emotional and sad in the game, and it's really emotional and sad here. Just another fantastic reenactment from these actors. I think I was just a little underwhelmed with what was happening in the current timeline. I guess maybe it was just a little too easy that Ellie just ran upstairs, found some steering and was like, yeah, this is cool, I'll heal Joel with this, instead of having to go like kill some clickers, kill some people, climb into a helicopter, get a med kit, and then protect Joel and heal him up from there. Maybe I just wanted a little bit of that or something, and the fact that we got 0 of that, I was just like, oh, okay, we're just fully focusing on the past here. Have you been watching along every week with The Last of Us? Where does this episode rank for you? For me, personally, it's probably one of my lower ones just because I was a little underwhelmed with the current timeline in this, but I still loved it. It was still very well written, very well performed, and the emotional beats still hit incredibly hard. Thank you again for watching my Last of Us videos every week if you've been watching these. If you're enjoying these episodes and you haven't subscribed yet, feel free to click that subscribe button. It means a whole lot to me and it's just a small little click for you. And I will see you in the next video.